All right. The Hangout is on air, and we are live today with Bob and Beth, and we're going to have a nice opportunity today to interview Beth. And she has just returned from a plein air event, and we want to get her candid feelings that might help other people wanting to go to a plein air event. Maybe they're afraid, maybe they don't know what to bring, what to do. And hopefully this will give you some insight into that. So pushing forward, you remember Bob, or Robert, as his title says on his bar,
Yes.
and Beth. And Beth, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Schweer. It looks like Schweier, but it's pronounced Schweer. Yeah.
So you went to a plein air event this past weekend, and what was the first thing that hit you as soon as you got there?
I didn't know what to expect, but I'd heard a lot of wonderful things. It's an annual event. It's been going on for some time. But I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the lodgings were like. It's in a remote area where there's not Wi-Fi, not internet, and very little cell coverage. So it was a little intimidating because I was going to be cut off, but I had my trusty GPS that got me there, so that was a relief.
Yeah, I found that when I travel, I have my GPS on my phone, but I try to print out a Google map for directions in case I lose GPS and I'm stranded someplace. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Definitely. I would have been lost. I think, fortunately, at least with my phone, the whole GPS gets downloaded, so even if I lose cell coverage, it still gives me the entire direction. So, but it's probably not a good idea to depend on that.
And so you went by yourself?
I did. I knew, though, that some of my friends were going to be there, and
right.
I highly recommend, especially if you're going somewhere for the first time, that you try to get a buddy to go with you.
I always find that I have to kind of find my way around the town. I generally ask people, where is it? And, I feel, I guess, a little bit lost, too. I guess that's the feeling. And all the roads, you feel like you're disoriented because you're someplace you haven't been before. But before you know it,
yeah.
So those are real feelings that we all would feel. And,
right.
So if you're going to a plein air event the first time and you feel that, well, hey.
That's normal.
That's normal.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, I hope I have all the stuff I need. I hope I brought enough warm clothing. And so I go to check in, and they don't have my reservation.
Oh.
So.
Reservation at the.
At the lodge where we're staying. So, but fortunately, I have the email that shows that my reservation had been confirmed, so I was able to show the guy behind the counter, I have a confirmation. And so they were really nice, and they upgraded me to a nicer room at no extra charge. So that was nice.
So you got there the night before, and that's right.
Well,
and that's a good idea. Get there the night before. Get yourself situated, because why put all this pressure on your painting to get there, arrive, get your stuff, find your place, and all that kind of stuff. Get a room,
right?
Whatever you run into, so you could calm down, settle down, get everything where you need to. Talk to someone.
And they did have a dinner that night, and that was wonderful about this place. They provided all your meals. So there was a dinner, but I got there around 12:30, so I could get the lay of the land. I knew I'd be painting outdoors in that area, so I wanted to kind of scout out some sites that I wanted to paint the next day.
Right.
And I took some photographs. I saw the weather forecast show there was going to be sun in the morning, so I kind of anticipated that. I kind of got my site scoped out. Then I got checked into my room and kind of got organized before dinner, before I met the rest of the artists there.
They generally take care of their
Mm-hmm.
at these events, and they do plan it out. And some, I guess, every rare once in a while they don't plan it, but for the most part, these events they've done it more than once, and they want you to return even the next year. So they plan it well. They include meals or give you a roadmap where you can find meals.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. They're not always that way, so it's important to read the brochure on the online or the publication involved, and they usually say whether lodging's provided, whether food's provided, because there are some that it's like you're kind of on your own to find your own lodging, to make sure you got your own food, but there are events that are planned within the weekend, a pizza party, a sale, a show and tell, etc. So it's important that you know ahead of time what the event is like.
Did they take into account special diets? Because I know that's not a big concern for a lot of people, but for some people that is a concern that they don't want to eat, things that don't gel well with them.
Yeah.
And I found that a problem sometimes.
That's a good question. I'm not sure because I don't really pay attention. As long as they say there's food, I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah.
But there may have been, and I'm sure, like at this place, they're probably used to making some accommodations. But they had a menu set out ahead of time. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I remember I went to an event one time, and Bob, you might have had some experiences too that you want to share. That I like my coffee in the morning, so the room was a nice cabin. Then I went off and I knew where the coffee shop was, and I was ready to paint. I think it was like 7 o'clock. I'm on the early morning light or 6:30, and then I got to the coffee shop and I found out they didn't open until 10 o'clock.
What?
Yeah, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I need my coffee.
Yeah.
So,
That's where gas stations come in handy.
Yeah.
With the coffee.
Okay, more onto the painting. What kind of things so you found your location, you met some of your friends, some people, you got to painting. What were some of the things that were going through your mind when you started painting? Fears and
well, I first realized
positive thoughts
that I left an important piece of my equipment at home.
Oops.
I got a new tripod for my easel. It's like a Prashad box, and I forgot to bring the right adapter, so I had the wrong adapter.
Oh.
But I had 2 different sizes Prashad box, so I had to use my smaller one. And so I was frustrated right from the beginning because I don't like painting on that. I mean, it's good for some things when you know you're going to be trekking a long way or you just know you want to do a small painting. So,
yeah. In that book that I wrote, I talked about getting a suitcase and put everything in there, and it is a good, if you haven't ever painted plein air before, it tells you everything you need to do from the get-go to the follow-through.
Yeah.
What to have. I like the having the suitcase, and because every time I go, those supplies are there, and the next time too. So I don't like go into my suitcase and take anything out in between. So I have to remember to put it back. I would have a duplicate.
Right. That's great if you can have the equipment set aside all the time just for plein air.
Because that's always my fear too. Like, what did I forget?
Right.
Or I'm thinking, did I forget my panels? I'm going to get there and I'm not going to have anything to paint on.
Right. Or am I going to have enough? I'm going to have the right size, and you need to make sure that you've got wet panel carriers, either.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 different sizes, and then I brought a pizza box, which I learned in New Harmony is a great way to store wet panels.
Yeah.
And I had an odd size, so I made sure I had a pizza box for that.
Yeah, I like the pizza boxes. And if you can get pizza in it, it's even better.
Bonus, right? So, but I was excited because as the forecast promised, there was sun the next morning. And so I picked a spot that actually had 3 different scenes that I wanted to paint. All I had to really do was turn my easel.
Yeah.
And I had 3 different vistas. So that was exciting. So I got two paintings done in about an hour and a half before I froze through.
Oh, physically froze, not froze about painting. Your body froze.
I mean, I just got cold and hungry. So, but I felt like it was a good morning's work to get 2 paintings done.
How cold was it?
How cold? It was like 38.
Ooh.
But there was sun, which helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you asked me if I was going to go, and I was like, well, I don't know. I don't like cold.
Yeah, but the good thing is I went with my objective to paint a lot like this Stuart Shills. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to focus on big shapes, and so I knew being outside in the cold would help me paint quickly and simplify, and it did. And so I had a couple little successful paintings, so it was good. And then we went to lunch, and a lot of them, and I think this is probably true in cold plein air events, you end up painting inside too a lot. And we set up.
I've painted inside. I've done figurative paintings, and plein air is about painting with live light and a real scene. And so if you went inside and you had outdoor lighting and you were painting something that was a real thing, I guess that'd be as close as you could get to plein air painting. Maybe even painting a figure or a model outdoors. I think that plein air doesn't necessarily always have to be landscape. Somebody might want to argue that with me.
Were you using acrylic and outdoors in that temperature or oil?
No, oil.
Didn't it get kind of gluey after a while?
No.
The temperature didn't affect it much?
I don't think so. I didn't notice. I mean, I paint thick anyway with a palette knife, and I just used a little bit of oil to get the thin, to make.
Okay, so yeah, I've painted inside, like I said, a figure with, it had natural light coming in. Another time I painted in a barn that had a big open side of it, and it was raining outside. I ended up painting a tire and a couple pieces of cement that were there. And one thing I can credit to art school was they said that anything can be art, and it's true that anything can be art if you make it into art, And I guess I've seen in some of the plein air events that some of the paintings can sometimes look a little too much the same for my preference, and I do like it when people mix things up a little bit more, possibly look at design a little bit more, something to make it a little more unusual. And so I know that some of the events, I felt that you could sometimes feel that there's some competition in the air. Was there prizes and things like that with the?
No, this event is set aside for artists to come to paint as much or as little as they want. They have a show and tell time on Sunday before everyone goes home, and it's all positive feedback.
Did people get to sell their work there, and did they sell their work?
No, I mean, one of the artists sold one of her paintings to one of the innkeepers, but they were the only outside people there that were artists, so it really isn't designed for that. I've been to other plein air events where there is a show It's advertised ahead of time and
Do you think
promoted.
do you think people should think that if they're going to plein air paint, this is a great way to make some extra money?
Somehow I think that's a loaded question. Well, I think there are events like, like we've gone to Lake Wawasee and you purposely paint the regalia and you know that people want, those are the kinds of paintings people want. And so you have an opportunity to sell local paintings to the local collector or local community that love to see the boats. So that's all kind of thought out at the time, and that was kind of the purpose of the event. The purpose of this event was and just to have an opportunity. A lot of times there's snow this time of year, and it gives the plein air artists, and that's kind of what I was looking forward to.
Right.
Gives the plein air artists a chance to paint snow.
Yeah,
So,
I want to get out and do some snow scenes, and Bob, you're going to have a hard time with that unless South Carolina.
I'm not going to have a hard time with it. I'm very happy that I don't ever have to see any snow.
well, that's something to think about. What is the purpose of this event? And a lot of times, depending on who organizes them and why they're organized, they have completely different feel and purpose.
Yeah, and just because it's a plein air event, like you're saying, they're not all the same. Some of them aren't that well organized, and they hope that somebody comes. They might even lure you into coming thinking that, hey, you could sell your work there when maybe no one even shows. Events, they might have a $5,000 prize for first place.
Right.
And you're going to have some of the top people in the country there that are going to want that as income.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
I don't know about that event. You'll have to tell me about that one.
yeah. So getting started, it's something that you do because you enjoy it. It shouldn't be something you're thinking that I'm going to make lots of money at it. I had someone look at the art thing as this other way to make money, and I've talked to an artist recently, putting a lot of pressure on herself to make money through her artwork, and I don't know if she's ready to. And even some of the big name artists that go through highs and lows with their selling. So
right.
You're going to get into plein air painting. I think you should get into it in some of these events because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And like you said in our last interview that when we had our discussion, that you do it because you like the camaraderie of other painters and learning from other artists. And that kind of, I guess you could call it fellowship or whatever.
I mean, I also enjoy the light and the shadows, and even when there isn't perfect light, to learn how to paint on a less perfect day, and that takes some skill. And so I also enjoy painting plein air by myself, but I tend to probably gravitate toward plein air events more for the fellowship and the learning. And they've learned from this weekend that maybe
they're not all the same. If you're starting out, you might want to go to an event like this where there isn't any competition. And so you that's dialed off the table because maybe that's a little too much, and you just want to go out there for the camaraderie. But the other thing is, if you really want to plein air paint and you want to go out with a couple of your friends, do that. You don't have to wait for an event to come. If you guys can all jump in a car and go someplace, or even make it into a vacation.
Absolutely.
So, the original painters that did plein air, there was no events. That just wasn't ever,
right.
considered.
In fact, I'm reading a book by Sue Rowe called The Private Lives of the Impressionists. And I'm not sure how historically accurate it is, but it talks about how Monet and Renoir and Degas, how do you pronounce it?
Yeah.
They would go out to the countryside and paint outdoors, and you know they did that on a regular basis to try to get local color, and so it's been around for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only event that a lot of those painters loved was hopefully they would sell a couple of those paintings.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And maybe that's, you know, maybe we need to get back to a little bit more of that. It doesn't always have to be an event. And I'm not really a big one for events all the time, though I'd like to go to a couple of them, but I'm not going like every week and every month. Like some artists really will ride that.
Good. In some areas, you could do a plein air event every weekend. So I mean, it's a great way if you do like to paint with others and get to know other artists. It's a great way to get to know other artists.
Yeah, I've met so many painters by going to the events in areas that I would have never gone to, and my wife is tired of hearing me say every time I go someplace, I'm like, oh, I'd love to move there, or I'd love to move here, because there's just so many beautiful areas that you would have never gone to if it wasn't for these events.
Right. One other thing I just thought of about the advantage that Monet and Renoir and that group of artists had plein air painting is they had free models, because they would be at the beach or in the park. You know, they didn't have to pay someone to sit for them. They would just sketch and paint from life, and that was probably a motivating factor for them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To work on
do you have any other questions for Beth about the event, or some things that you've run into when you've gone out on? I know you and I went to that one plein air paint out in South Carolina last year. Anything else that you can think of?
At least they didn't ask you to go out a half hour before sunrise. Why did I want everybody to be there by 7 a.m. And somebody said, well, wait a minute. This time of year, the sun doesn't come up till 7:30. Wow. He had a rebellion on his hands before he even got to first down. But no.
Mutiny. That's funny.
I'm not into painting competition, especially competing while painting. That doesn't excite me too much. I would just like to concentrate on improving my painting, working on a painting. I enjoy the company of other people who are around to critique other artists that may have picked a spot. A lot of us go locally here to various locations where somebody has an in to get into the property that we're going to paint on, and you know, that's a lot of fun, but it's not a competitive situation, and you know, there's no prize, judge, or jury, but people will help you, and you know, it's always helpful to see how somebody else is interpreting and choosing what they're going to paint from the same selection you got. Everybody looks around and decides that you can't paint everything you can see, so obviously you're going to concentrate and make a decision on what picture you're going to paint, what section of that, what area, how you're going to frame that painting. And when you see how other people do it and different conclusions they may come to, it's interesting and informative. And I think that's a lot of painting outdoors. If you're going to paint something that you're looking at, narrowing that down and simplifying it to something that you can actually capture in the time you have available is one of the more interesting skills that you need to have. One of the things to learn.
No, I agree. That's good. Okay, well, let's wrap this up. And Beth, thank you for being the one to talk about this and share it with everybody. I hope it answers any questions that people may have and get them going to some paint outs. It can be just for companionship to paint with other painters, or if you want to compete. And so look at the information and don't just count on those people. Check some things out for yourself, like Beth said. Do they have lodging? Are meals included? All that kind of stuff. So, all right, this has been a good time, and I want to thank you guys again. Thanks, Beth and Bob.
Thank you. It was fun.
Take care.